Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's forum for the Allegheny County Board of Education candidates being broadcast live here on 1270 AM WCBC and online at WCBCradio.com. There are 3 active candidates vying for the 2 available seats in the Board of Education in the general election on Tuesday, November 8th. This forum is designed to permit the voters of our community to learn more about each of the candidates so they may make an educated choice on Election Day. The candidates in attendance this evening are Laura Lee Farrell, Tammy Fraley, and Nicholas Hadley. I'd like to begin by thanking the candidates for participating this evening and extend a special thank you to the faculty and staff, the Democracy Committee, and Dr. Rayanne Smith of Allegany College of Maryland for their work on this event. Now let's begin tonight, or this afternoon, with a request for everyone present to turn off their cell phones. They can be distracting at times. Might even be a question we have in the forum about cell phones. Now a little information on the format for tonight's forum. The candidate will answer questions submitted by the faculty and staff of Allegany College of Maryland, members of the Democracy Committee, and the WCBC News Department and general public. Asking questions of the candidates will be Dr. Steve Gibson and Allegany College students Ruth Napara, Robert Smith, Paul Miltenberger, and Lenny Vega, and WCBC News Director Brian Gowans. We will be opening with each candidate introducing themselves and providing an opening statement if they choose to do so. In our final segment, you will have the opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement. We will be taking at least 3 breaks in the hour, approximately every 20 minutes, and they will be 3 to 4 minutes each to allow everyone to catch their breath and briefly relax. Now, let's get started, shall we? The opening statements. First, Laura Lee Farrell. Laura Lee?
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Lee Farrell, and I would like to first of all thank Allegany College of Maryland and WCBC for this opportunity to talk about the school election. I want to tell you just a little bit about myself. I have lived here all my life. I graduated from Allegany High School. I went to the University of Maryland School of Nursing, where I received a bachelor's degree and worked then at the shock trauma unit at University of Maryland. Soon after that, I married my childhood sweetheart, Bob Farrell, and eventually we moved back to the Cumberland area, and we had 1 child, Jessica. While living here, I worked at Memorial Hospital and at the Allegany County Health Department. For the last 17 years, I've been a supervisor for the Allegany County Public Schools, and I retired in January this year. So I have quite a tremendous interest, and I have a lot of dedication to the success of our kids, the employees at the Board of Ed, for our community. This is the place I call home, and I want for all of our kids to have every opportunity that is available to children all across Maryland and across the country. And I wanted to see all of us succeed, and so I'm very happy for the opportunity to run for election. Thank you.
Thank you. Tammy Fraley.
Hello, my name is Tammy Fraley. I'm not originally from here. I'm originally from a place called Plano, Texas. I moved here 11 years ago when I met my husband, who is a City of Cumberland police officer. We have 4 children, and that's my main reason for running. With the 4 children, they range in age from 21, he's a senior at the University of Pittsburgh, 18, 10, and 1 that's about to be 7. And they're the reason I'm running. I want to be the parents' voice on the school board. I've been part of the school board meetings for several years as a parent, going and expressing my concern about policies and procedures, as well as being part of showcasing some of the great things that our school system does. My youngest son is in the Chinese immersion program, and as I see that grow and I see what my son is able to do with the Chinese immersion program, I truly see what this county has to offer our children as long as we stay focused on the end goal. And that end goal is to make sure our children are educated and are college and career ready and have a place to come back to work. If they go away to school, there's the schools, Allegany College, as well as Frostburg University. We have great connections with them as well, and I think we need to focus on that to ensure that, again, our students have something to come back to, and for my own personal reasons, I would love for my children to still be here to take care of me when I get older. My oldest son went away to the University of Pittsburgh because he felt that there wasn't a place for him here in what he wanted to do, and I want to make a difference there. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas Hadley.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out and expressing your interest in the forum here. We greatly appreciate your time. As Paul said, my name is Nicholas Hadley. I live in Lonaconing, Maryland with my little 9-month-old baby and my wife. I am a lifelong resident and am very involved in the community. I am running for re-election to the Board of Education because when I initially went through college and decided that I wanted to pursue a career in teaching, I went to Frostburg State University and got my degree, Bachelor of Science in Business. So I kind of veered away from the education, but I do have a minor in English, which helps me in everything that I do and everything that I have to handle for the board and any kind of speeches or anything like that. When I first initially 4 years ago decided to run for the board, I had already been in local politics from my town. And I thought there were some things that I noticed that I didn't quite agree with that were going on in the school board, and I wanted to see a change. So I thought the best thing is to make this the most comprehensive school system for my future kids. And now that I have a little boy, we've got a few years before he gets there, but I want to make sure that we have every possibility for this little guy that is out there. I want to make sure that we enhance the current programs that are there, whether it be the Chinese immersion program, whether it be the active learning labs, whether it be anything to do with the Career Center. I would like to partner with local companies, the colleges, maybe even some sort of other businesses to help enhance those programs out at the Career Center and just make them more hands-on, actually out doing internships. I also want to make sure that we make the schools as safe as they possibly can be. We've instituted some programs on that, but we would like to enhance that. And then lastly, I just want to make sure that we get the new high school completely built for Allegany and have this beautiful structure and open that as a new high school. I would like to have your consideration because I have the dedication and the experience on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to point out, we have 3 parents of kids who, one has been through the system, one has kids that are in the system, and one who will have kids in the system. So we have all kinds of experiences and perspectives here, and we really appreciate all of you running for office. I know that's a big step. Thank you very much. Now let's get started with the questioning, and we will start with Ruth Napara from Allegany College of Maryland. Ruth?
Hello, how are you today? My question for you is, what steps will you take to make sure our transgender students are treated with dignity and respect?
Yeah, we will start with Laura Lee Farrell. The next question, we will start with Tammy, and then with Nick on the third question. Go ahead.
Okay. My understanding is that the question is, what steps would I take to make sure that our transgender students are treated with respect? Well, I think that the bottom principle to that is that all students are treated with respect, not just transgender students, but all students need to be treated with respect. And I think that happens in many ways in the school. I think that it needs to be modeled by the adults that work in the school. There needs to be some policies in place that prohibit behaviors that are either dangerous or in any way disrespectful to other students, which we do have. And I think that students have a big role in this themselves because they are very powerful. They have a lot of power when it comes to influencing each other. And I think that with leadership, that students can work at being tolerant to each other and being good to each other. You know, we've talked a lot about bullying in the past. We've had policies that addressed bullying, but really the students need some guidance, but they have some responsibility also in that, this is the place where they need to learn, if they don't already know, that everybody is an individual and that it's very important that we respect that. So, and there, a lot of after-school activities and even in-school activities, clubs, band, sports. There's a lot of opportunities for kids to work and play together, both, that will help them understand those, the fact that it's so important for us to respect each other. Thank you.
Tammy Fraley.
So to address that question, I believe that, much like Laura Lee said, we need to ensure that all of our students are treated equally and fairly across the board. But I think a large part of that is that we need to have at the board a policy that's in place that can be enforced, not just a policy that's on paper, that's not utilized. We need to ensure that there's a process in place for students that are concerned that they're not being treated fairly, that they have a way to come and make that known, as well as there's a way for the board to make a change and do something about it when and if something does occur. The way our society is today, we know that things do occur, and we can't be shy away from that. We can't say, oh, it's not happening in our schools. We need to be willing to realize that it's going to happen, and as a board, I believe we need to ensure we proactively make those policies in place before it happens.
Nicholas Hadley.
Well, much like the ladies here, this is a issue that has been handled for many years in the system. It's actually handled with respect to the actual individual that has these needs or feels that they need to, it needs to be handled in a certain way. So it comes with respect. It comes with a lack of bullying because, as they said, we want to make sure that no one's picked on. We want to make sure that they feel comfortable in the school setting because that's what it's all about. It's to make it an all-encompassing education for all students, regardless of what their backgrounds are, what they believe, how they handle themselves or how they live. So it comes down to a respect thing, and it's currently being handled in appropriate manner now, mostly one-on-one with the families that are actually involved in transgender issues. And we just need to make sure we continue to take care of that, and we handle it the way they want it to be. If they want it to be confidential, we keep it confidential. If they want to have it out there, however they want to have that, then they can do that. So we just need to respect the individual that has the worries there.
And quick follow-up there, Nicholas. How many students are involved with transgender issues in the school system? Do we have a number? Are we like 5 or 10 or?
Paul, I believe that it's probably less than 5 throughout the entire school system. We could probably get those numbers for you, but I'm not 100% sure. It's actually a very low amount at this point.
Okay, I appreciate that. Our next question will be coming from another Allegheny College of Maryland student, Lenny Vega. Lenny?
This is for Tammy. Finland and other nations have dramatically taken steps to radically reform their education systems, pushing the United States further back in the pack of countries with the best education systems. Are you open to exploring these cutting-edge education strategies? If so, how do you plan to work with the state in challenging high-stakes testing, among other policies?
Okay, Tammy, you're first on this round. Go ahead.
I believe that we as a county need to use all of our resources to enhance our educational system. I used to work for a company many years ago, about 20 years ago, that was based out of Sweden, Ericsson Telephone Company, made cell phones. I was able to visit over there for many weeks at a time as part of my business, and as well as I work on SAP systems, business systems that is in Germany, and was able to visit there as well. And seeing how that country runs, or those countries run, you can see that there's great opportunity to make a change in the United States, because we do need to be competitive. If we're not competitive, we will not have economic development, and our children won't have a job. We need to ensure that the education that we provide our children is competitive. With the testing that's done, we just got back the PARC scores, which is the new in Maryland. We're using this new assessment. We did get those scores back, and one good thing is that they did increase. We're seeing changes in our scores, but we do still have a challenge because we need to ensure that we educate them to where they can get a job when they get out of school, and all children can get a job. We don't focus on the high subset. We ensure that everybody can make a difference, and I believe that internationally, I already touched on the Chinese immersion program, but seeing that and the work that Allegany, the board did to bring that program to Allegany, they've worked together with the Chinese program at Frostburg, as well as they worked together with people downstate to ensure that they have a wide variety of the Chinese part of what they're learning, because they're not learning just ABCs and 1, 2, 3s in Chinese. They're also learning Chinese culture to ensure that they can go to China and actually have a conversation. And what's amazing to me with that program, and I think that's just the beginning for Allegany College or Allegany County. With that program, though, I can see my son, who's only 6 years old, have a conversation in Chinese. Of course, I have no idea what he's saying, but I can see him have that conversation when we go to his school with his teacher. She can tell him to do something, and he does it like he knows what she's saying. And I think that that's an amazing opportunity and something that we do need to continue with.
Nicholas Hadley.
Well, I totally agree that we definitely need to make sure everything is a possibility in our county. Our kids are just as bright and smart as anyone in this entire world, and I definitely think that we need to expand any program that we've got. The Chinese Immersion program is at Westside Elementary School right now, and I think it's one that I would love to see actually expand throughout the entire county, because it's not just that one school that actually would benefit from that, but every one of our children. I think that when we put our kids up against a lot of other countries and everything as far as test scores, it's kind of tough because a lot of times they put their brightest and best up against ours, and we put every student ahead because we want to make sure they all have a possibility and a chance to learn. So whatever it's going to take, I am all for bringing in anything that's going to enhance their lives, make them smarter, make them more marketable whenever they're actually in the college age, and anything that's going to keep jobs in this community, okay? Because if we raise up the best and brightest students, they'll stay here potentially and make this the best county in the entire state, if not the entire nation. So thank you.
Laura Lee Farrell, you're next.
I would just like to say, I would like to say that our school system is different from many other countries in that in America, we provide a public education to every single child, regardless of their capability. So we offer all of our children an opportunity and to work to their very best that they can. Now, other countries don't necessarily do that, and that plays a big role sometimes in how you're comparing one country to another, and that is other countries often provide advanced education to students who are advanced, and they don't provide an education to everyone the way we do. So that is a totally whole different picture. So in comparing students and in comparing countries, there certainly are things to take into consideration. But please remember that in our country, our system of doing things is pretty different than most other countries. And I do agree with the other candidates that it's very critical that we, in our country, have the capacity to provide students that are exceptionally bright and have genius capability to be able to develop that and use that to the best of their ability. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, Brian Gowans will have a few questions for our candidates on 1270 AM WCBC and streaming at WCBCRadio.com. And we're back. You are listening to the Candidates Forum for the Allegheny County Board of Education from Allegany College of Maryland on 1270 AM WCBC and online at WCBCRadio.com. Presented by the Allegheny College of Maryland Democracy Committee and WCBC. I want to point out that during our break, our three candidates were getting along. That can happen. Our folks on the national level may want to take notes of what's happening here in Allegheny County. With our next question is WCBC News Director Brian Gowans.
Right, and we'll start with Nick this round. The latest numbers show that student population in Allegheny County is declining, and that trend may continue. Do you foresee a scenario where there'll just be a need for one Cumberland High School sometime in the future?
You know, we never want to rule out that there's ever going to be one school in Cumberland as far as for high school. However, there's no worries that that's going to happen. The classes that we've got coming up through the ranks, especially the ones in kindergarten, first grade, second grade right now, they are largely populated. So we're going to see here in the next few years that those top figures are going to be pretty good. I know looking at the projected I think graduation rates for this coming year, they're kind of low, one of the lowest, I think, in history, but that's not going to discourage us. We've got a great booming economy going with all of these new businesses coming in, so the economic development's there. We've got the new school that's being built for Allegany, and I think that that's a upward spiral that's going to make people want to come here. We have a beautiful community, so I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to be here, and I think that we are going to see the trends go where the kids are going to go higher and higher. I tried to start that with my own, so I started the boom. Thank you.
Laura Lee Farrell.
Well, I agree with Mr. Hadley. I'm definitely hoping that we're going to have more businesses in Cumberland and more opportunities for people, not only here, but for people moving here, that they would like to live in this community. That's definitely our hope. And I think the fact that the classes coming up are larger is very promising. So we're going to, at this point, hope that we're going to see a change in this decline of students, and hope this will turn around. If the decline continues, then we're going to need to do whatever is in the best interest of the kids. And that's how every decision should be made when it comes to the Board of Education. That's the principle that every decision should hinge around, and that is what is in the best interest of the kids. And I'm going to use a really quick example here, forgive me, but I'd like for you to think about the airline industry, and this may make more sense to you. In the airline industry, the planes are built, the pilots are hired. Everything revolves around one principle in the airline industry, and that is passenger safety. So for the school system, everything hinges around one basic principle as well, and that's what's in the best interest of the kids. So no matter what the decision is, whether it has to do with one high school, whether it has to do with tires on the bus, whether it has to be food on the plate, whether it has to do which curriculum to use, every single thing should be, every decision should be made as to what is in the best interest of the kids. That's how we succeed in the school business.
Tammy Fraley.
I agree that the population, looking at the trends, I did go back and ask for the count of people in each, or students, the student population in each grade by school, to try to see what that was going to be. Because you do see that, and I think it's in the 500s as a graduating class, which is a lot less than normal. And I think that what we have to consider is those up and coming grades that do have that large population. But as a school system, we can't lose focus on that. We have to make sure that those students stay. And the only way they're going to stay is if their parents want them to stay. We have to work together with the community, with economic development, to ensure that we help make that difference. Although we're not responsible for economic development as a school board, we are responsible to make sure our students have an education, and we do what's in the best interest of the students. And I believe a lot of that is working together with the community to ensure that we do that. Thank you.
Very good. Let me follow up on that. Eventually, and I live in Garrett County, we got to a point a couple years ago in that county where the student population had dropped to a point to where they could not maintain having the school open. Now, the numbers that you all have seen, are we going to be in a situation where that's going to be an issue to where we're going to have to cut programs or close maybe an elementary school in order to keep the entire system well? We'll go with Nick first since he went first on this series. Go ahead.
Well, no one wants to talk about consolidation or closing of schools. That's the last thing that I would ever want to see happen because, all of our communities have their own elementary schools. They all have, some feeder school for the high school. I'm not sure that we would ever, want to go that route, Paul, but I'm not saying that consolidation or closing is not an option. But I think, if anything, you'd be looking at probably elementary schools that would probably have to combine and go from there.
Okay, Laura Lee, you want to tackle that one?
Sure. The communities that have been affected from closures, school closures, and redistricting, like, for instance, Old Town, Orleans, Westernport. I've been out and talked to some folks in those areas recently as I campaigned, and I have really heard them say that losing their school was such a heartache for their community, and each one in kind of an individual way, even though it's hard to lose your school, period. But in Old Town, for instance, they said, it's so hard for a second grader to ride a bus for such a long period of time. And one of their concerns is the fact that their bus stops changed, and they said, our old bus stops weren't safe, but the ones that we have now are more difficult. In Orleans, of course, they say, our kids have to ride the bus for middle and high school, that is, for at least an hour to and from school, an hour to and an hour home. And they said that's hard, but they said the real hardship of this is the fact that if they want to participate in any after-school activities, then that travel becomes almost insurmountable. So, I think that if you are a member of the board, the elected board, I think it's so important that you understand how everybody in this community feels and how these things affect people. And if you do have to do something as drastic as that you work with that community and help them in every way you can to make an adjustment. Because we all understand, I think, at least we need to understand that money makes the school go round. Money makes the world go round and makes school happen. And you have to do the best with what you have. Now, that doesn't sound very good, but there is a reality to that. So if that ever should happen, I think that if the board, the elected board, is very tuned in to the community and works very closely with the community, that they can work through those kind of things. Hopefully the board will never have to do anything like that, or I say we as a community, but we don't know what tomorrow holds necessarily. We just have to work together and make sure that we're helping each other through it.
All right. Tammy Fraley.
I can't say I'm looking at those numbers. When I was looking at them, I don't see that we're close to needing to close an elementary school. But I do see, like Nicholas said, that the elementary schools would probably be the ones that are closest to that. I think, though, that one thing that as a school board we need to look at doing, which is a long effort, it's not something we'll do overnight, is look at redistricting. Because there are districts that where the kids go to school, I mean, you're literally right across the street from Parkside and you go to Cache Valley. And that just seems to be something that we could look at where the population is and ensure that we try to look at redistricting so people don't have to be on buses for that long, or they don't have to, ride a bus when they could walk to school, for example. So I think that looking at redistricting is something that as the population is looked at, that's something that the school district should look at as well.
Just to bring you up to date, something that came in today, consultants hired to review Maryland's education funding structure released a draft final report that includes major redistributions in state aid and new local funding mandates. Basically, a quick review, they want to increase state aid by 25%. They want to have local aid go up by 10%. So that will figure into any future consolidation talk, I'm sure. Very good. Now let's continue with our panel questions, and with our next question is Robert Smith.
How will you educate students so they are not affected by the drug problems that are being experienced in Cumberland?
All right, Laura Lee, you're first on this one.
Well, I think that we have to educate children from K through 12 when it comes to drug prevention, and that has to be done in age appropriately, but it needs to be part of every school year. It needs to be part of every child's education, that they spend time in one way or another learning about drug prevention education. There's many, many ways to do that. I think that the after-school activities that are available for kids, I think that's a huge factor in helping kids not get involved in drugs. I think it doesn't just come from education. I think it comes from the support of a student's family. It comes from the support of the employees, the teachers, all the people at school that the kids come in contact with. I think it comes with being able to relate to the kids, help the kids if they have issues, be able to talk to someone, have the guidance counselors available to kids, have adults in the school that have a trusting relationship with the kids can turn to when they're in trouble. But that's a very tall issue. When we ask kids why they get involved with drugs, that's the same answers that have been around forever: curiosity, peer pressure. So it's not that it's rocket science. It's those are things that we can talk about with kids, and we do. I think that we need to spend more time in drug prevention education. I have to tell you, remember that we're required as a school system to do the reading, the writing, arithmetic. We're not required to do as much drug prevention education. Therefore, there needs to be some really creative ways to do that. And I've got all kinds of ideas on how to do that, and I'm not sure that we've got enough time for me to go through all those, but I can assure you that I've got some very innovative and creative ideas that I think would be very helpful. So if anybody wants to hear that, just get in touch with me, okay?
And we would encourage anyone out there listening to get in touch with the candidates. They'll be happy to talk with you about any of their positions after, of course, the forum. We're not going to take calls now. Tammy Fraley, you're next on this one.
Okay. As I stated in the beginning, my husband is a City of Cumberland police officer. And so being a wife of a police officer, I see and hear some things that not everybody sees and hears. And the drug problem in our county is frightening. The amount of deaths from heroin overdoses is frightening. Although they're not children yet, they're their parents. They're their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents. We have to, as a community, the school board has to work together with the community to make a difference. The school board's not going to be able to do it on their own. The health system's not going to be able to do it on their own. Law enforcement's not going to be able to do it on their own. I've heard Captain Leake say it many times. We cannot arrest ourselves out of this, and we cannot educate ourselves out of it either. We have to work together as a community to come up with a program. I actually, amazingly enough, just hours ago posted on my Facebook page about Anne Arundel County has a program that says "Not My Kid," and it is a drug prevention program that they're working on with those organizations in Anne Arundel County. We have to do that. We have to. There's just no doubt about it. Thank you.
Nicholas Hadley.
Well, as we know, it is definitely an issue and a problem that's going on in our community, and it expands over the entire state of Maryland, if not the entire nation. But, you know, when I was younger, I went through a program called DARE. Back then in 5th grade, and we still have that wonderful, valuable program right now, and some of you guys may remember that, but it goes now beyond just say no. Now we've not only got to educate the students, but we've got to educate the teachers, because these students aren't necessarily getting it at home now. So we've got to educate the teachers to tell them it might happen. You might come in and you might have a student that lost a parent or a grandparent to a heroin overdose. Well, that not only goes with the actual problem with the overdose, but then you're dealing with grief or a potential death. So we need to educate our teachers to help out with that as well. We also, like Mrs. Farrell said, we need to start right at kindergarten level all the way up through 12th grade. Because the more we ingrain in our students that it is a very bad issue and you don't have to just join in because your friends are, then we can start it very early, okay? And I actually had a family member that unfortunately had an overdose and passed away, and she left behind a little girl. And that little girl has grown up pretty well. I mean, she's pretty adjusted, but she went without a mom. So we need to use our personal experiences to help out, and we really need to educate the teachers and the parents if they're willing to listen, and just get the word out.
Thank you very much. We're going to take another short break now. We will return after these messages on 1270 AM WCBC and streaming at WCBCradio.com. Welcome back to our Candidate Forum, brought to you by Allegany College of Maryland, the Democracy Club here, 1270 AM WCBC, and our friends at Beckman's Green Street Pharmacy. Our next question will come from our panelist from Allegany College of Maryland, Paul Miltenberger. Paul?
Hello. What are your thoughts on providing parent workshops that teach Common Core basics so that parents can help their children learn them? What is your position on Common Core overall?
Tammy Fraley will go first.
Okay, as I stated, having children in the school system and in elementary school, I've had the pleasure of learning Common Core. And as a parent, actually last year, Westside Elementary, and I believe other schools do this as well, they do have workshops for the parents to come in, especially for math. I'm a CPA. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, and my, at that time, 4th grader came home with math, and I could not help him. And it was fractions. I mean, it was something that was not algebra, and I couldn't help him. And I had to contact the school to try to help him. And then when I went to that program that they had, it was amazing because I did see those children learning how to do that, boom, boom, boom. Just like I learned how to do it before, a different way. But they got the same answer, and my son was pretty funny when I did it because I'm over here doing it the old way, and he's doing it the new way, and that was what they wanted us to do. The teacher wanted us to see that our children could answer it faster the new way than the old way, and it did. And so I think that having those programs for parents is absolutely necessary. I've been part of a parent involvement team for several years as well, and those parents constantly send messages saying, how do we do this? How do we help our children when I can't help them with their homework? And I think that all the schools in the school system need to do that. They need to have their parents involved and allow them to learn with them so that they can help their kids at home. Because right now, a lot of times kids don't have help at home, so they just don't do their homework. And you don't want that to occur, and you want to give them an opportunity as parents to be part of their children's education. So having those programs, I think one challenge with that, though, is when to have them. Because a lot of times you need to have them during the school day, and as parents, working parents, they can't come. So we do need to, as a school system, look at how can we think outside the box to provide those programs at different times of the day, which does challenge our teachers because they work more than 40 hours a week themselves during the school day. So how do you do that? But I know a lot of teachers that are willing to come off the clock, so to speak, to help their students because they're all about the student as well. So I think we need to look at that, look at when we have those programs, but absolutely continue to have them. As far as Common Core itself, I believe that as a local school system, we don't have a lot of influence on saying yes or no to Common Core. What we do have an influence on is how we do Common Core and how we teach our students. And do you teach them to a test or do you teach them so that they can go out and be productive citizens? I think that we can, in downstate, we can voice our opinion about Common Core, and that opinion, I believe, should come from the teachers who know their students and know what struggles they're having with Common Core or not having. Some teachers truly think that Common Core is great. I mean, they're learning a different way, and they enjoy doing that. But there's some students that can't learn that way. So we have to think outside the box on that as well. Thank you.
Nicholas Hadley.
Well, Common Core has caused a mass hysteria in some people. They don't like it. They don't want to learn it. And they just think it's the worst thing that was ever designed. Personally, I think that Common Core was designed with the best possible intentions because it was to challenge the students, increase rigor, and make sure that they are learning more and more within a certain subject area, okay? So I think that that was actually a great design. I think it was rolled out poorly, and I think that the way it was presented, actually people didn't like it, and they still don't. It's very tough for Common Core and for people to learn it, especially parents that did it the old way, and just like Tammy said, there are workshops, and I think that what would have to happen or should happen is maybe during the school day they have one workshop and then maybe even after hours. I know our teachers are sometimes overworked with working on actual schoolwork and the students anyway, but I think that most of them would be willing to put in a little extra time after hours as well, and I think it all comes down to what's most beneficial for the parents and the students, and I think that the teachers would be willing to do it and go above and beyond. So programs are already there. I think Common Core is a great program that was started. Just needs to be tweaked maybe a little bit of how it's presented. Thank you.
Laura Lee.
I think that the kids gave the best analysis of the whole Common Core rollout. And when I was at Mountain Ridge, one of the students said to me, "Why didn't they start this in kindergarten? Why do they have to start this when we're in the 10th grade?" And I understand that because it just slammed everybody when it came out because change is never easy, and it was a lot of change. Common Core was a lot of change. Let me just say that the larger picture, the purpose in Common Core really was good, and that was to have all of the counties and the states in our country be on basically the same page so that if a student moved from Maryland to Colorado, they weren't lost, they weren't in a whole different kind of school system. There was some uniformity to the expectations that students had in every grade in every state, and that was not a bad thing. However, like both of the other candidates have said, the way Common Core was rolled out was very hard. It increased the rigor, they call it. That's an educational word. They increased the level of expectations that kids had to meet, especially in math. And if you're not, a person who's necessarily fond of math, it was traumatic and probably still is. It would have been for me, I can tell you that. However, I've said it's a shame that it was so traumatic for everybody, because there's an awful lot of good things about Common Core. The intention was great. And like Mr. Hadley just said, what they needed to do was, first of all, I think the student was right. Start it in kindergarten instead of, in the middle of the stream, so that kids could grow up with it. But the other thing was tweak it as they went. But they had to get it off the ground and get it going before they knew how to adjust it. I just hope that if we continue to do Common Core, that those adjustments will happen and that this will become something that is really beneficial to our kids, all of our kids, and all over the country. But that's kind of almost yet to be seen. It's not all bad, folks. Common Core isn't all bad, but it's been a real haul.
Let me dumb this down a little bit. Since we're in a Board of Education forum, let me go lowbrow on it. This would be the Scooby-Doo approach. The Scooby-Doo approach is, at the end of it all, the bad guy says, we would have got away with it too if not for those meddling kids. Well, is there a component here that the system does not want the parents to be meddling in the education because of all of the getting the schools all on the same page? There seems to be a missing component here where we did not get the parents in on it. And that's, so they have been left out. And I think, unfortunately, we have some students out there that come home, the parent doesn't know how to do it, and they teach them the old way. And now you have kids overwhelmed with a double system. Now, is this the way it went? I'll let you take a second stab at my dumbed-down version of the question, Tammy.
I think that those that came up with Common Core were focused on trying to expand the horizons of the students and the children. And again, like Nicholas said, it's really how it was implemented was the problem. I don't think they purposely left out parents. But again, parents are older usually. And change is hard for everybody. And so, again, like I said, even having children, I knew I had to figure out how to help them. But not every parent's going to be part of that. So it goes back to, I think, as a local system, we have to recognize that we need to include the parents. Unfortunately, at the federal level, their focus was on the student itself and making it common across all of the states, and I think it just wasn't implemented correctly.
Okay. Nicholas?
Well, back when I was in school, in grade school, actually, I had to have my mother help a lot. And, I think the problem is now the parents are not involved because they just don't know, or they don't want to take the time to learn. And, I've heard some parents say, well, I'm going to teach them the way that I knew, and they are just going to have to deal with it, and, change is difficult. And I hate to hear that, because we're moving our students along, and it goes back to one of the questions earlier about, how we going to stack our kids up against the world, and Common Core is just that. It's going to put them in the right direction to be on the level playing field with everybody in the United States, but also with the extra rigor and the extra work that they're actually going to know how to compete with the entire world population. So I think it's a good thing. I don't think that Common Core is evil, and I think that it can be worked out and done correctly, but we need to get the parents, grandparents, guardian, whoever it may be, involved a little bit more.
Okay, Laura Lee?
I think you're right, Paul. I think you probably are very wise in that nobody prepared the parents for this change.
You're agreeing with Scooby-Doo now. Okay?
I absolutely agree with Scooby-Doo. When I look back on it, it was everything that the school folks could do to prepare themselves. I mean, they were working very diligently. I mean, I remember going through this. I mean, I've spent 17 years at the Board of Education. I remember this change taking place, and the supervisors all sitting in a room and really working to put this together. And finding ways to help the teachers understand it and taking it one step at a time. And it was a large undertaking for educators to make these changes. And so I think that all the educators, in their desire and their need and their work to bring the students on board, I don't think the parents were given a fair part of that. I think that they weren't prepared. The parents weren't prepared. I don't remember really preparing parents for what was to come. I just remember knowing that it was so big for educators that we were very diligently working on it. Just an example, for instance, in English, and this is an example that pretty much everybody I think can understand, and that is high school English focused a lot on some of the classics like Shakespeare, some of the, the literary things that were written hundreds and hundreds of years ago. The Common Core placed more emphasis on writing. It really is a program that encourages and helps kids learn how to write. And there's more emphasis on writing than there is on Shakespeare. So as the other candidate said, Common Core was an effort to really bring education up to the 21st century and make those changes that they thought were necessary. And I hate to say it, but you're probably right. The one part of this that wasn't carefully considered enough was the parent segment of it.
We're all parents here. We're all frustrated. Okay, very good. We're going to take another short break. We'll return after these messages on 1270 AM WCBC and streaming at WCBCradio.com. Welcome back, and we're live at Allegany College of Maryland here in the Continuing Education Building and our candidate forum, sponsored by Allegany College of Maryland, the Democracy Committee here at ACM and WCBC sponsoring the Board of Education Candidate Forum. And with our next question is our news director, Brian Gowans.
The Allegheny County Commissioners in recent years have routinely provided just a maintenance of effort budget allocation, indications that might be the case again. With no new dollars on the horizon and a depleted reserve fund, how do you go about balancing the budget and maintaining a quality education system?
Nicholas Hadley, you're up first.
Well, I have had the unfortunate pleasure of dealing with maintenance of effort the entire 4 years that I've been on the board. Whenever a budget is presented, it's presented in its entirety of what we need to actually survive, run programs, pay our teachers, pay our staff, and take care of all of our students. Whenever we end up getting maintenance of effort, it really dashes our hopes, and we have to scramble to make up the funds to take care of the programs, because the last thing we want to do is cut a program that is very essential. What we have had to do in the past, unfortunately, is delve into our fund balance, which is basically our general fund that allows us to have a little extra. Now, unfortunately, that is going down as well. So if we don't soon get more than maintenance of effort, we are going to have to look at more drastic measures. We're either going to have to look at cutting programs, or we've already lost enough teachers that we can't afford to lose anymore. So that would be one of the last things that I'd ever want to see happen, is a cut in teachers. They're too essential, and we need them. But we're going to have to look at the programs. We're going to have to see what we have to keep and what is essential. We also, as we talked earlier, going to have to look at school potentially consolidation for the elementary schools. But it's a tough world whenever it's maintenance of effort. And we're looking at sometimes $1.5 million. That's a lot of money for me and maybe someone sitting here, but when you're talking about a county that has an excess amount of money in their fund balance, that little extra will put over everything that we can do for our students. That way our budget is balanced. It's ready to put in, affect all of the programs that we have and change nothing. And it all comes down to what is best for our students, and that's keeping the budget at where it needs to be. So maintenance of effort might end up being the end of some of our schools, and I would hate to see that.
Laura Lee Farrell.
I'm not sure that I totally agree with Mr. Hadley on that. The school system operates on a $100 million budget. $70 million of that comes from the state of Maryland, and approximately $30 million of that comes from the county. That's their operating budget. That's the budget in which they are expected to run the school system. That's the budget in which the school system has been running, with the exception of money that the board has used from what they call the fund balance, or another word for that is their savings account. They did have a savings account of $12.9 million in about a 4-year period from about 2012, starting in 2012. They went through approximately $9.5 million in 4 years of their savings account, not money from their operating budget. They had the money from their operating budget. They went through an additional approximately $9.5 million. That's excessive spending. That they didn't have to spend an additional $9.5 million in 4 years. So that was when they were able to have anything they wanted to have, basically. And they needed to, back then, start tightening their belt, because you can't spend more than what you have coming in year after year after year. And the board has done that. They have spent more money than they have coming in. At some point, that's all going to stop, and they're going to have to learn, I hate to put it that way, they're going to have to find a way to manage within their means. They're not going to have they don't have the extra money now. The extra money's gone. All the extra savings, the $12.9 million is gone. You know, I can think of many ways that 2 years ago, they could have started to bring their belt in. One was to put a moratorium on out-of-state travel, because some of the other counties in Maryland did that. It's not just Allegany County that has to tighten their belt. Everybody else does too. And I don't think that the county commissioners are just trying to be difficult with the Board of Education. I think that they want the board to be accountable for their spending, and I understand that, and I think the board needs to be accountable for their spending. Absolutely, they have to be accountable for their spending, and their spending has to be transparent. All of their finances must be transparent. We all need to know. And I can tell you for a fact that for the last 7 years at least, when I was working there was never a financial report at any board meeting. So they had board meetings every month, and they had a maintenance and construction report. They had a IT report. They may have had an instructional report. They had reports from every department except finance. So they need to make some changes. They need to have, instead of just working off their budget, they need to have a financial plan. They need to have goals, and they need to try to stick to those goals. They're going to have to find ways to pull in their belt. And I can tell you, probably I have many strong things to bring to this candidacy. That's one of the things that a very strong thing that I have to bring, and that is, after working in that school system for 17 years as an administrator, I know a lot of ways that the Board of Education can pull in their belt. I'm very experienced at that, and I know they have to. So that needs to be done. They need to meet with the county probably biannually, if not quarterly, to work on their budget. They need to cooperate with the county and work with them. And they're not doing that. They're not doing it. They don't have a plan. They don't have a financial plan. They have got to have one. They have got to have a plan if this school system is going to run well, period. They can't just go from check to check and bill to bill. They have to figure out what they're doing and how they're going to work at this to make sure that teachers and employees get raises. They can't do that without a financial plan. All those things they can do if they really work at managing their money. I do not think they have.
Tammy Fraley.
With my background as a CPA and a cost accountant, I've looked at the budget. If we want to continue to have a quality education, cutting things is not going to help that. There are places where budget could be trimmed down, but there's also we need to consider looking at the programs, the administrative programs, to ensure that there's not overspending there. The amount of out-of-state travel that is done, I think, is minimal in being able to bring in, $1 million. You're not going to get $1 million out of out-of-state travel. The out-of-state travel, I know some have said that the superintendent does a lot of out-of-state travel. I checked into that myself and found that most of his out-of-state travel is covered by the people that he's traveling to. So the boards that he's on, they pay for that travel. The conventions that he goes to as a representative or as a board member are paid for by that. I think we do need to consider, though, looking deeply into some of the administrative areas to ensure that there's not overspending at that level. I do not think we can take away from the educational programs, because if we do, the talk about how we want to move forward and be cutting edge, you're going to lose that cutting edge if you cut money from there. We have to consider that we need more money, and whether that's maintenance of effort formula, like Paul said, that it was just put out today. I looked at that report before I came in here, and there is an opportunity there where they are looking at increasing the state level of funding by changing the formula, which also would actually reduce the amount that the local would need to give, because, and I can't quote the numbers exactly, but there was approximately $15 million more from the state and $7 million less from the county, making a net impact of $8 million more. So if we can get that type of funding, that's where the difference is. We don't need to cut ourselves. We need to work with the state and local government. As Lori Lee alluded to, as far as working with the commissioners, in my opinion, I think that a board member should be at the county commissioner meetings so that you can learn what they're spending their money on. Because, again, as a wife of law enforcement, I see that if we take money away from the county to give more to education, guess where it comes from? Public safety. And I don't want that to happen either. So, you got a double-edged sword. You really got to work together. I'm a consultant that's been in consulting for over 20 years. And what we need to do is collectively come together and brainstorm ideas. Not try to stay in our own little box and say we need more money for education, we need more money for public safety. We need to work together, because I think a lot of the economic development that's being worked on is going to increase our tax base, which gives us more money to spend. And we need to work together with the county to do that as a Board of Education.
So, Tammy, you are proposing having the Board of Education have a designated member go to every county commissioner meeting, much like we used to have the county commissioner go to the Board of Education meetings.
I'm suggesting going to the meetings, not necessarily sitting on it. I think
Right.
they had an ex officio member before. I'm not saying sit on the board and be there, but be there so that you get that information firsthand. And that's what I've learned a lot in the last 2 years, because I have gone to the county commissioner meetings. I go to the Board of Education meetings. You have to be willing to share that information. And I think that the best way to do that is not to plan quarterly meetings necessarily, but just go. Because everybody has meetings, they're open to the public, and you can learn on your own as a board member. And I think that that's what I would do as a candidate. If elected, I would go to those meetings just as a public person to see what they're working on, so that I have that information when I want to work together with them.
Now, you can't see this on the radio, but Nicholas and Laura Lee are bobbing their heads up and down. So can we get it on audio there? Nicholas, what do you think of that idea?
Well, I absolutely have no problem. I've gone to county commissioner meetings on numerous occasions. I unfortunately work till 5 o'clock, so most of the time I can't get there every time. But it would be most beneficial to have someone there to see the inner workings, And if I may, just take a few seconds. I have sat on this board where we have sat down and went line by line by line of the budget to see where we actually have had to cut. And we've had to make tough decisions of getting rid of different programs or cutting, one time it was stationary for different schools, and they had to come up with their own budgets. And that's not anything that we want to do. So it does come down to working with the elected officials, not only here locally, but also the state and federal level. And I love the fact that they've come out with that thing today, the memo, I guess, today that actually said that they're going to start requesting the state to kick in more. That's wonderful. And I'm not advocating just that all the funds go to education, but we definitely are the ones that are building up our children for a better tomorrow. So we need to make sure that they get all the best education they can.
Okay, Laura Lee, go ahead.
I just want to say that I really don't think it would be enough just to have a Board of Education member attend all of the county commissioner meetings. I think that it's absolutely a necessity that a relationship be built between the Board of Education and the county commissioners, and that they actually spend time working together. I think that that is just a necessity. I know in years past when I've had training in emergency response, that in an emergency, one of the most important things that helps things actually go smoother, I hate to say it that way with an emergency, but that's the way I have to say it, is if the fire department and the police and the school and the hospital have all worked together prior to that. That they know each other, that they've built a relationship, they know how each other thinks, they know how each other works. And I think that principle is necessary when it comes to the financial health of the school system, and that is that they really do need to be able to work with the county commissioners, and the finance man that works in the finance officer at the county, the county administrator, they all need to sit down together at certain times so that they really do get to know each other so that they can communicate and work together. That's what it's going to take.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question coming from Alleghany College of Maryland's Dr. Steve Gibson.
What are your ideas for effective programs and strategies to address bullying in our schools?
Laura Lee Farrell, you're up first.
We touched a little bit on that earlier when we talked about transgender acceptance, and the schools have really been, across the nation, have been working on this because of the tragedies that we've had with school violence, shooting, killing. And school personnel have recognized that this is a very serious issue, and we've done a lot of things in the school system in the past to work at addressing that. One of the things that we have available are guidance counselors in the elementary schools, well, middle and high, but elementary schools that do weekly lessons with the kids. And, we have to start, this is an old movie, South Pacific, that says a song, and it says you have to be taught before it's too late, before you were 6 or 7 or 8. To like other people you'd really not want to like, but understand. And so we have to start with kids very early to help them understand respect. It's an uphill battle. I'm thinking as I'm sitting here, when there's so many things in our society that we see on a daily basis or we hear that are not respectful. Just think about that. I mean, as you're a kid growing up, they have so many media, so much available to them through the media now that tells them differently than what their parents tell them or what the school tells them, that we are competing with society. And so this is something that I'm going to say we're going to need to keep working on. I don't think we've cornered it. I don't think we've solved it. I don't think we've magically made it all go away. I think that this is something that we're going to need to continue to work on with our kids and our families and in our schools. And I know that school personnel work on that all the time. I know that there's a basically no tolerance for bullying in the school system, but it's still something that we really need to work on. One of the ways we do that is to work with the school staff. We really need to work with the school staff to help them understand how to deal with it more and more. So I don't think it's anything that's going away. I don't think it's something that's changing in our society. I think it's something that we're going to have to keep working on.
Tammy Fraley.
I think to have an effective program for bullying, you have to go outside of the school system to get support. There's a lot of national programs that are in place for bullying that have got a proven track record. And I think we need, as a county, to use some of those. I know my husband, again, who's a school resource officer, went to a national conference, and I got to go as his wife and with our children. And when we were there, though, they had programs around bullying that the school resource officers were in charge of, so to speak, that they pushed those programs. There are several that are amazing programs. And I think that we need to look at those. As a board, we need to use our resources that we have, use community members that we have, the health department, the counselors, guidance counselors, and things like that, so that you use all the resources that you have and use a program that has a proven track record. I do know personally that as being a candidate, there have been several that would come up to me and say that they don't address bullying. You know, I've gone to a board meeting and tried to deal with this situation or that, and they just slapped their hand and let them go, which of course that was from a parent of the kid that was getting bullied. But we need to ensure that we address every situation. And to do that, you need a comprehensive program. And I think using something at a national level that has a proven record will help.
Nicholas Hadley.
Well, bullying has been around since the beginning of time, and unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to get rid of it altogether. But what we have to remember is it's not just someone's getting their feelings hurt with being bullied. If it continues, that could end up being a psychological problem for that person throughout their entire lives. So it can impact not only their growth as far as socially, but it also could hurt them mentally. And what we have to do is, I agree with the ladies here, that we need to make sure that our teachers are being educated as to how to take care of that. And one of the great programs that we have a resource officer that goes around, different ones throughout all of our schools throughout the day's time, and they're there. And one of the things that they're doing is they're starting to befriend all of the students and making them realize that they, are there to help them out. So if they have someone to run to talk with them or help them out, that's always a guide. So we have the student resource officers, we have the teachers there. Our teachers showing a great amount of love to our students. A lot of times they'll make sure that they're fed, that they're clothed, that they are taken care of in any way. So I think when it comes to bullying, they also will be the main lead on that as well. But we just have to have that program in place and make sure that they realize it's not going to be tolerated, because it can hurt them way down in the line as well, not just that someone's feelings are hurt.
Thank you. And we're going to take a short break, and we'll return after these messages on 1270 AM WCBC, streaming at WCBCradio.com. Thank you very much, Jim Drake. We have approached the time of the program we call the lightning round, which means what we're going to have is our panelists ask a single candidate a question. The other candidates, if they wish, can signal that they want to jump in on that too. We're going to try to keep the answers to about 60 seconds in length. That way we'll be going bang, bang, bang. Okay? And to start us off in the lightning round, who started us off with our first question here this evening? Ruth Napara.
Tammy, this question is for you. What experience do you have that would enable you to be a good addition to the Board of Education?
I think my experience as a parent with children in the school system will make a difference. I also, though, believe that my background in accounting and as a consultant, a business consultant that has worked on several large federal projects, which means working with people that you may not get along with. I think that will make a big difference in my ability to work together with a diverse group of people to make a change. Thank you.
Laura Lee wants to chime in.
I want to say that I just have to chime in here because I spent the last 17 years working in the Board of Education and attending budgetary meetings, working with a budget that was part of the operating budget, working with all of the supervisors, working with all the principals, working with all the schools, all the departments, transportation, maintenance, operations, food service. I have had a vast experience in 17 years with all these people. So I really feel that I have a tremendous insight into how this organization works, who these people are, and I really feel that that is very valuable in this election.
Okay. Okay, very good. We'll go to Nick too.
Well, it basically comes down to I am the incumbent here. I've seen it all happen in the past 4 years. I've not missed one monthly meeting in 4 years. I've not missed one graduation or certification thing for the Career Center in 4 years. I am dedicated. I care about these students. I care about Allegheny County schools soaring to the top, and I get along great with every administrator and all of the central office staff, as well as all of the current board members. So if you want to keep it rolling with the great stuff that's going on now and what's happening, I'm your guy.
All right, very good. Lenny Vega, you have the next question, and the first answer will go to Laura Lee Farrell. Go ahead.
Okay. How will you help students learn more about what it takes to build a small business in Cumberland?
Oh, love that question. Well, we have a perfect way for students to do that, and that is the Career Center. We all say that have worked in the school system that the Career Center, or been on the board, that this Career Center is just the diamond of our school system. And the reason I say that is because when you graduate from the Career Center in the 12th grade, you can, at that point in time in your life, actually operate your own business. They're carpenters, they're mechanics, they're builders. They do all kinds of programs at the Career Center that people can actually, cosmetology, nursing, people can walk out of that school and actually start their own business. And I don't know any other school that it would be that facilitated as it is at the Career Center. So it would be a little more difficult in some of the other schools to graduate with a 12, in the 12th grade and start your own business, but I'm sure that that's possible. But the Career Center is absolutely, without a doubt, that opportunity.
Nick Hadley wants to chime in.
Well, I just want to piggyback off the fact that we do have the Career Center that focuses on a career or opening your own business. They have many business courses out there. And one of the things that I've been working with over the last few months is I've been participating in a manufacturers roundtable. And I'm sitting down with different manufacturers in the local area that are saying that they want certain employees. They have certain tasks that need to be filled, certain jobs that need to be filled. And that's here locally. So how do we boost our local economy any better than working with these manufacturers, working with small businesses to get these people to open their small businesses, okay? So I think that that's one way to just beef up the Career Center and work with our local manufacturers, local business people, CPAs, insurance industries, whatever. So I think they would definitely help.
Okay, very good. All right, very good. Our next question on the lightning round coming from Robert Smith.
What are your thoughts about school recycling programs, including raising awareness with students? Would you promote it?
We go to Nick next.
Well, the good thing is sometimes I get aggravated with it because I'm the one that has to take care of it at the house, but my wife is huge into recycling. So the fact that we actually already do it at the central office is a wonderful experience. And I think even students now are getting more used to the fact that they have to recycle because it's going to save our world and the community and everything around us and our wildlife. That's one of the things that we have here that's so beautiful is our wildlife. But I think that we've already started that in our schools, and I think that the only way to make it better and make people realize that they need to take care of this world so it is the way it still is to promote recycling.
Very good. Paul Miltenberger, you're next.
How can we better prepare high school students so that they do not need remedial math, writing, and reading courses upon entering college?
I think we go to Tammy next because we reversed the order.
Messed everybody up.
Yeah, we got them all confused now.
So can you repeat the question? Sorry, because I was.
Go right again.
How can we better prepare high school students so that they do not need remedial math, writing, and reading courses upon entering college?
I believe that we, as a Board of Education, need to focus on the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. There are some that, based on the PARCC scores that came back, we can put programs in place to ensure that those that had trouble with the PARCC exams, with the algebra, that they're able to have special programs or special ways to help those students outside of their regular classroom. And that's part of the use of PARCC. The Board of Education has already looked at that. That's part of the professional development that is done by the teachers and the administrators. Those days that they take is to look at those tests and see where there is room for improvement. I do know that I've heard in board meetings before that the number of remedial classes that are required for people coming to Allegany College is high, and to be able, and math being the key one. And I think we need to make sure that although we focus on our career center and we focus on the advanced placement, we also don't want to forget the other ones. We need to focus on all of our students and make sure that we have programs in place to help them as well.
All right, we're going to take a break in the lightning round. When we come back, Brian Gowans has 3 questions, one for each of you that is geared specifically to you, and I don't think you'll need to chime in at all, but it's basically specific question for each of you. That's coming up next. We're going to take this break and return after these messages on 1270 AM WCBC and streaming at WCBCradio.com. Thank you very much, Jim Drake. And we now continue with our forum for the Board of Education. Joining us with a series of 3 questions, one for each candidate, our news director, Brian Gowans.
Ms. Farrell, I'll go with you first. You've stated publicly on a few occasions that if elected, one of your priorities would be to see a change in the superintendent's position. And also knowing you can't comment specifically on this, you also have litigation against the board in which Dr. Cox is named in the lawsuit. What would you say to those critics that say your candidacy is an axe to grind?
Thank you. That's a very good question. I appreciate you asking that. First of all, let me say why I think we need a change in leadership. Our superintendent will be here serving Allegheny County Public Schools for 8 years by this coming June, the June coming. And at this point in time, after almost 8 years as superintendent here, we should have had, in my opinion, a financial plan long ago that could have made this school system more stable financially. I don't see it as stable financially at all. That means, what I mean by that is a plan is much more comprehensive than going by a budget, simply having a budget. They plan for such things as teacher or employee raises. The school system had a large increase in their health care plan. And the teachers got a little bit of a raise, but because of that huge increase in their health care benefits plan, they really didn't see a bigger paycheck, even though they got a small raise. And I said, you know what, there were a lot of employees that didn't get a raise at all, but they still got hit with that big health care bill. So, I feel that there's the morale in the school system. I don't feel it. I don't think it. I know it for a fact. I know this for a fact because teachers, employees have told me, and they say to me, Laura Lee, I love my job. And I say, yes, I know that because I worked there for all these years. I know these people. I know that person loved their job. And they said, but it takes everything I have to get up in the morning and come to work. And it's having an impact on the kids. Now that testimony and how you want to relate that to a superintendent who's been here almost 8 years isn't okay with me. They're having financial issues. They have morale issues. They have test scores that have been terribly low. And the communication. The fact that all these years they haven't been able to work with the county commissioners. I hate to say it, but there are some really crucial, important issues in this school system that are not what they should be. This is not what we should have after 8 years of leadership. And I'm saying that we need new leadership because of these issues. We deserve better. We deserve better in Allegany County. Our kids deserve better. And so the reason why I'm running for election is because I'm the person who's strong enough to stand up and say, this is not good enough. We need better leadership in our school system. We need to be able to raise the morale, raise the test scores, come up with a good financial plan and straighten out the finances. And I'm willing to do that. I stepped forward and ran for election, not because I had to, but because I wanted to, because I care about our community. I care about all of us. And I'm standing here tonight telling the community what we have right now is not good enough. Now, how that relates to me on a personal level, I've thought about that a lot, and I'm just speaking from my heart tonight. I'm just saying exactly what I think and how I feel. And that is, this may sound awful, and I don't know any other way to put it. What I care about is our community and all of us that live here. When it comes right down to it, I don't care about the superintendent. I don't care that there's a litigation. I don't care about his future. I care about our future. And so I am so involved and so dedicated to wanting to have something better in our school system, better for our employees, better for our kids, better for our community, that's where all of my efforts are. I don't have any desire to fight the superintendent in any way. And as running for election, that's not my purpose in running. My purpose in running is to bring things that are better to our community. And I hope that answers the question. I've said it the best I know how.
Brian, you have another one.
Right, Tammy, Laura Lee just touched on this, and current school board member Wayne Foote has said repeatedly he believes morale among teachers and staff is, in his words, at an all-time low. Do you think that's the case?
I believe that the morale is low. I believe that there's many factors that made that morale the way that it is today. I think one of the bigger reasons for that morale is communication and the teachers having input into the school system. There are ways and avenues that the superintendent has for them to provide input, but I don't think there's enough. I think that the teachers are, I've heard Mr. Foote say this before, they're the front line, right? They're the ones that see our teachers or our students every day. And they love their job, and they're going to come to their job even with that low morale because they love what they do. But I think that as a school board, we need to provide them the avenue to provide input to us to make it different. And whatever that may be. It may be something that is related to the superintendent, but it also may be that they have an idea for a program that they could see make a difference in our students' lives, and they're just not given the chance to provide it. I think that we need to give that avenue to them. Thank you.
Brian?
And Nick, one of the criticisms when people talk about the school board budget is there's a perception, at least, that the central office is top-heavy salary-wise. But at the same time, teachers have not really gotten adequate raises for several years now. Would you address that?
Well, I know that no one wants to do without a raise, and we all like to get those whenever we can. And I can honestly say that when I was the board president, that we were successful in giving a 1% COLA to all of our staff and teachers. That was a huge victory for us because it had been 4 or 5 years, and it just allowed that we had the extra funds and we found them, okay? As far as our central office, a lot of those people are going to be compared to like CEOs and VPs and high-level ranking individuals in other corporations. They sometimes have to be there overnight, for different functions. I know when they do upgrades, they have to have the people there for that. I think that we are definitely putting our funds into the classroom as opposed to worrying about anything else. But we definitely need to make sure that we take care of our teachers because, as Tammy said, they are our front line. They are the ones that are out there, hitting the pavement every day. Do I think that there's some excessive paychecks at central office? I'm not going to go that far, but I'm going to say that we need to definitely look at everybody when it comes to raises and paying them for what they're worth. And when you say that, they're worth millions, but we have to go with the constraints that we have. So hopefully that answered what you needed.
We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll have the closing statements from each candidate here on 1270 AM WCBC, streaming at WCBCradio.com. We're back for closing statements here, 1270 AM WCBC, WCBCradio.com, and at Alleghany College of Maryland's Continuing Education Center. Our first closing statement from Nicholas Hadley.
I just want to thank you, Paul, for moderating the forum this evening. I want to thank WCBC for taking the time to listen to what we have to say and our opinions of what's coming up and what we're expecting. I want everyone to take away from here that I'm not a politician. I am a concerned citizen of Allegany County that wants to make sure that our students have the best possibilities to succeed in life, whether it be with a program that can enhance their studies or whether they can learn a sport to put them out there to a superstar. I want to make sure that they succeed in any possibility that they want to go through. I want to make sure that my son has a great background to focus on and get a great education. I want to make sure that the schools thrive regardless of budget. And when it comes down to it, it doesn't come down to what's best for Nicholas. It doesn't come down to what's best for an actual building or a school itself. It comes down to what is best for all of our students within the system, and that's from kindergarten to 12th grade. And we've got to touch on all of the community people that are out here working for our students because they're our best advocates. All I can say is a vote for Hadley is a vote for your child because it runs deep that I love our kids. I love the fact that we have dedicated staff, and I want to make sure that we can progress in the manner that we are. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening.
Tammy Fraley.
I want to also thank you for having this forum and providing a place that we can express what our goals and objectives are. As a parent, as I said in the beginning, I want to be the community's voice on the school board. I want to ensure that everybody has a say in how our students thrive in our community. I want to ensure that we have parental and community involvement in everything that we do. I want to start a program called Impact, which is impressing minds, parents, and community together. I want to do that for this district. I want to ensure that my children are able to stay here and thrive and come back to Allegany County. I love Allegany County. I'm not originally from here, but I want to stay here. I want to be here to see this school system grow, and I want to see our students be able to make an impact across the nation. Thank you.
Laura Lee Farrell.
I want to thank everybody also for this opportunity, and I want to say that all three of the candidates here we have all really enjoyed working with the students this evening and everyone else. It's been a good experience for all of us. I want to say that I am the candidate of change. I'm not sure if that's a good thing to say considering the national election right now, but I consider myself to be a very strong person who will stand up and ask the very hard questions And the reason that I am is because I care so deeply about our students, our employees, not just the teachers, but all of the employees that work for the Board of Ed, because it takes all of them. And I care most of all about what we have to give our children. And I want our school system to be the best it can be. I don't want to do things because it's easy or turn the other way because I don't agree with it. I'm not that kind of person. I'm the kind of person who's going to stand up for what I know is right, and I'm going to stand up for this community, and I will work very hard to make sure that there are some very important changes made because we need them. We can't have discouraged and unhappy and disappointed employees coming to work every day. We can't be on a financial cliff every day. We need to be able to communicate. I am telling you all of you that are listening, there is an atmosphere of intimidation and fear in the school system because people are afraid that there will be retribution if they say anything. All those things have to change. So thank you very much. That's what I have to say.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the candidates for the Allegheny County Board of Education, Laura Lee Farrell, Tammy Fraley, and Nicholas Hadley. Your participation. And to the members of the Democracy Committee, faculty, staff, and students of Allegheny College of Maryland, I'd like to thank our panelists here this evening, which included Ruth Napara, Robert Smith, Paul Miltenberger, and Lenny Vega, Dr. Steve Gibson, and our news director at WCBC, Brian Gowans. The audio of tonight's forum will be available on WCBCRadio.com under audio highlights. Audio and video will be made available by the Allegheny College of Maryland Multimedia Technology Department via YouTube. Thanks to John Bone and his department for their assistance. And thank you for listening. For 1270 AM WCBC, I'm Paul Mullen. Have a good evening.